Thank you for joining us. It is Friday night, December 9th, 2011. This is going to be another extended, very important edition of InfoWars Nightly News. Lord Christopher Monckton, Mark Moreno are in Durban, South Africa, and they have told us, the interviews are coming up, that this is the most draconian UN genocidal operation, eugenics operation that they have ever seen. Those interviews are coming up. We also have a report on John Corzine. That's coming up. But I do want to talk about the gravity of what we face here. It is because of you, the viewers of InfoWars.com and PrisonPlanet.tv, that we're even here. If it wasn't you out there who love liberty resonating with our message, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. If it wasn't for the crew in there and the work they do, we wouldn't be here. Every day I pinch myself at what's happening in our world, and I pinch myself again that I am at the very forefront with you in the fight against these tyrants. It is an incredible, incredible responsibility. Truth is stranger than fiction, and we're here right now. The fight against good and evil, it's real. Let's go ahead and get into the news this evening. First article, Obama administration launches major anti-terror propaganda offensive. And I was reading their actual press release today, and it says Al-Qaeda is no longer the threat. It's domestic groups and extremism, which is political speech. And in the manuals, if you don't like the Federal Reserve or carbon taxes, you are a terrorist. Protesting, left, right, whatever you are, a Native American group, a conservative, liberal, whatever it is, you're a terrorist. No, the government putting down stuff like this on paper is the terrorist. And you are the un-American trash. The same people that ship guns into Mexico to kill thousands and hundreds on our side of the border to blame the Second Amendment. You are convicted, you are admitted criminals. Period. People are like, well, I'll vote Republican. They're bought and paid for too. This political class, the two twin parties, the two-party dictatorship is a fraud. And reading that AP article and others today, it just blew me away how brazen it was. I mean, they are shifting gears for this whole police state grid on the American people. And that's not really a surprise, because we've now learned that not only did the Halliburton and KBR, Kellogg, Brown and Root, put out 3 days ago an internal memorandum trying to hire subcontractors to be on a 72-hour notice on a paid contract to stand by to man civil disobedience camps all over the United States. Now hiding in plain view, we have an InfoWars.com article that links to the Business Insider article. Army post job for internment specialists following KBR call for FEMA camp subcontractors. Now, we've reported old calls for this. This is a new one specifically for the military to hire a bunch of state, county, and federal prison guards to man this situation. You can read the article at Business Insider and also at InfoWars.com. Quote, every soldier that enlists in the Army chooses a military occupational specialty, MOS, writes Robert Johnson. Designed by a number and a letter and designated, the 31E MOS now includes advanced responsibilities, including command and control of prisoner of war and civilian internee camps. Civilian internee camps, which they passed a law last week, NDAA, saying the military can operate in America and indefinitely detain you, and nobody knows where you went. Where'd Alex go? Where'd Marcos go? Where'd Bob go? Wes go? Where'd Rob go? Where'd John go? We don't know, just like in every other third world dictatorship, because a bunch of criminals took over and decided to rob everything, like Corzine. And if the military bends over for it, the police bend over for it, it means civil war. The bankers sit offshore and laugh and roast marshmallows on our flames. Let's just not show up for this party, okay? Let's be a little smarter than they think we are. Big story at InfoWars.com. Huge story at InfoWars.com. Let's get it out to everybody. Now, shifting gears into another Homeland Security police state action. Every 2 or 3 days, I see an article in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, or CNET News, 300 domain names, 5,000 domain names, 100 domain names. It's always different. grabbed. And they'll grab whole internet companies, tens of thousands of sites sometimes, and just grab all the servers because they found one downloaded song that was illegal or uncivil on a website. And here's the report. DHS shut down blog for a year on false pretenses. Homeland Security is seizing websites for copyright infringement with no evidence, no judge, no jury, no nothing. In a chilling illustration of how far the internet censorship has advanced, the Department of Homeland Security seized a popular music blog and shut down the website for a year on charges it now admits were completely false. Turns out there were 4 songs on this website being visited over a million times a day of alternative grassroots music, hip hop, rock and roll, country. And the site's listed on our article. And the DOJ now admits this. And big record companies got mad that alternative groups were able to put their music out and make it popular. So they just said, doesn't matter if they have signed contracts with 4 of our sub-labels for 4 songs, which it turned out they had agreements to play it. They just seized it for a year, bankrupted them. That's big music industry keeping a stranglehold on all this other music you're never going to get to hear because they make sure you don't. If Elvis came along today or Led Zeppelin, you'd never hear them. That's why music's so cruddy. They go with what a few companies want, and that's it. It's another dark age, just like they're shutting down power plants, just like they're shutting down new engine factories and new technology companies. It's called disruptive technology. I have a family member who develops new drugs, and they came up with an ancient medicinal that totally clots blood flow and cuts, and they were told, this is a disruptive technology. We're not going to let this come to market. That's what we deal with here. Whether it's music, technology, art, doesn't matter. Only the insiders and their dirtbag kids and people get to have stuff seen by the public. Just like it was in Soviet Russia or Nazi Germany. You didn't get to have your play go out to the public or your music go out unless your wife got down and performed fellatio on the Nazi officer over that, or the Soviet officer. And that's the opposite of freedom, and that's what I declare war on here today. A bunch of control freak bastards controlling our lives. I'm sorry, it's a family show, but that's what they are. They are not from humanity. They were born of corruption, not of this species, and I'm sick of them. Bunch of control freaks. So there's that article. Continuing, House Republicans look to strip the TSA screeners of their officer title, which is finally a move in the right direction. You know, the FBI can't go to a park and randomly grab your wife's genitals or your son's genitals or your genitals. And they're under supposedly the Bill of Rights Constitution. They can't do that. So how did they create 10 years ago a federal agency that takes control, sticks their hands down your pants, puts you in microwave ovens, and Chertoff, the former head of Homeland Security, makes money off of it? How do they do that? They just announced this. And Congress is pointing out, along with law enforcement and constitutional scholars, that this is like handing out badges to just people on the street and saying, you're now cops. They're not even having badges. And they're saying, you're not going to have 10 badges anymore. You're not going to have this name officer. You're not you know, when a cop has to go sign up and pay money to be bonded to be a peace officer, doesn't mean they're perfect either, but it's a big deal. You're now swearing to the people, I'm going to uphold this, and you got to put money up in case you violate what your duty is. But we just take all these people, pay a minimum wage. And I had one of them say, I'm going to stick my hands down your pants in Las Vegas because it's my administrative privilege. So I've got a clip here from what the famous movie, in fact, yeah, that's right, Treasure of the Sierra Madres, my grandfather's favorite movie. I watched it with him before he died at the hospital. This movie, you've seen it in some comedy films like Badges. We don't need no stinking badges. But here it is from the original film where they're talking about, hey, badges, we don't need no stinking badges. Well, the TSA, they've got badges, but they were just given to them. No training, no nothing. They just trample over everyone. Yeah, it's the Treasure of the Sierra Madres, famous film, of course. In fact, I'm having a senile moment. Who's the guy in the Maltese Falcon? Humphrey Bogart's in it. Let's go ahead and go to this clip of the TSA, because I guarantee you, after they strip them of the officer name and the badge and the bonded officer of the state court or the federal court, they're just going to say, You know, used to you had to have military officers commissioned by Congress because they wouldn't trust the president to appoint his own military people. Why? Because the president could become a dictator. Separation of powers. Now it's just, I'll hand out badges to everybody. Let them strip search Granny over and over again. Let's go to this Humphrey Bogart film. Here it is.
Está echadita.
Oiga, señor, we are federales. You know, the mountain police.
If you're the police, where are your badges?
Badges? We ain't got no badges. We don't need no badges. I don't have to show you any stinking badges.
Better not come any closer.
Same thing with the TSA. Listen, I'm going to stick my hands down your 5-year-old daughter's pants and grab her genitalia. Miss USA, we're going to grab her vagina as well. It's freedom. It's stopping Al-Qaeda. This old lady here on an oxygen tank, we're going to strip her down, keeping you safe. Everything's fine. We got a microwave oven here that doesn't even protect you, but it's all right. We're going to do it. This is what's going on in this country. So people are waking up to the fact that their stinking badges are made up. Now, continuing and moving right along, Bush press secretary calls Ron Paul nuts following 911 Glee comments. And Ron Paul basically came out to Ari Fleischer. You know, he made the point that Bush was gleeful, and it's been confirmed they wanted to attack Iraq within minutes of 9/11 and blame all these enemies and take domestic rights, and that there have been reports that Bush and Cheney were happy about it. Marvin Bush gave a speech admitting it. We filmed in Austin. So all of this has gone on. And Ron Paul comes out and says, think of what happened after 9/11. The minute before there was any assessment, there was a glee administration because now we can invade Iraq. And so the war drums beat, Paul said. That's exactly what they're doing now with Iran. See, it's the idea of people that have products and ideas who want to be friends with everybody and engage in commerce versus those that just want to attack everybody. And the American ideal of George Washington is be friends with everybody unless they attack you. Well, the globalists just attack themselves and then say a foreign enemy did it. So there's that report. And the clown is Ari Fleischer, working for known war criminals on record. Continuing, Ron Paul dominates favorable Twitter election coverage. We've got a report on that. He overall, if you scan Twitter, is the overall positive person. He's won all the major straw polls. And, of course, he is the favorite to win Iowa right now. So Mother Jones and other George Soros banker-run, fake liberal, fascistic sites have come out and said, well, just don't worry. You know, if Ron Paul wins in Iowa, it's a fluke. Just never mind him. In fact, I was watching Slimeball Chris Matthews in there during the break on MSNBC, and he was saying, oh, well, Ron Paul may be in second place in Iowa or first place, but he is not even credible, so let's just not look at him. Bunch of political sold-out whores say, don't look at Ron Paul. Well, you want to look there immediately. Continuing, we're going to go to break and come back with our top story of the evening, this big Durban, South Africa UN meeting that is taking place. But when are we going to get to the news report on the $600,000 speedboat? Okay, so right before our Corzine interview, we're gonna do that at the very end. Okay, so that's coming up. Again, I know boats, folks, and I've seen this boat. You can buy 6 of these for the same price. Just another example of government corruption. We've got our reporters out in Austin to show you a $600,000 drug interdiction boat. That's coming up. But let's hit this final point before we go to our interview. UN calls for eco-fascist world government at Durban summit. International Climate Court of Justice, they're calling for carbon taxes, carbon rations on each individual citizen. Just an absolute tyranny where you are literally not going to piss in the commode without some UN communist bureaucrat telling it's okay. Brainwashing of your kids, cutting off energy to the third world. Welcome back. It's InfoWars Nightly News, another marathon transmission. I appreciate you joining us. You are truly revolutionaries in the development of alternative media to counter these criminals. The fact that you care enough to go to prisonplanet.tv, the fact that you care enough to support us, that you spread the word, that is what is making history right now as we reach tens of millions of people a week. Thank you so much. Okay, I've got a few other news items I want to hit before we get to some important film review I'm doing. And then, of course, our interview with Mr. Corzine. Risk of Israel-U.S. strike on Iran has tripled, Barclays claims. This is out of Reuters. The chance of a military strike on Iran has tripled in the past year. The senior geopolitical analyst Barclays said it's gone from a 5 to 10% to 25 to 30%. Our intel is it's not going to happen until later next year as an October surprise for the 2012 election. And finally, we've got Moscow sees no military component in Iran's nuclear program. No kidding, it's been looked over by the United Nations. It's just a pretext to attack that country. Continuing, Napolitano on CFR. The full video is at InfoWars.com. The head of Homeland Security, Mrs. Janet Napolitano, has said that she jokes with elitist over Drudge Report, calling her Big Sis moniker. And she says she's very proud of the fact that she's turned America into a third world cesspit. So that article is up at InfoWars.com right now. A few of the other articles we've got, we already knew this. We're not saying Occupy, people protesting Wall Street, are bad. It's just that it was started by George Soros in the White House, and they run it. And here's a WorldNet Daily article. Occupy Nerve Center, staffed by Soros activists, professional radicals caught red-handed running so-called leaderless movement. They always said it was leaderless so they could control it themselves. And finally, I'll have to give this more next week, but Daily Mail, no more talking behind the wheel. Scientists develop a system that can shut down your cell phone while you're driving. Oh, sounds good on the surface, but it's all about everything being pre-tracked and controlled in this technocratic system. And I said finally, but here is finally. We're on our own now. Cameron uses the veto for the first time to opt out of the new treaty to save the euro and give more power to Brussels. That's how countries act as firewalls against tyranny. World government is being established by the bankers of the euro right now, and they're using it to get rid of national sovereignty. And the globalist Cameron has said no in England. We'll continue to follow that throughout next week. Now I want to go to a movie review. We did Clockwork Orange, on Tuesday night, and here on Friday night, I have 8 different clips from an amazing 1964 film, 7 Days in May. Now, it's got globalist propaganda in it, but it shows how the leftists that made this were useful idiots. The evil general that wants to use the NAS, National Alert FEMA system, this was in 64 before that was set up, to take over, he has basically set up the military to use this emergency alert system as a pretext to take over. And he speaks out against the one worlders and the New World Order. So now the idea back then was, because this was true, some generals were going to do a coup against the New World Order communists and bankers. And so they were worried back then, so they used a Smedley Butler type 30 years after he did it. The Marine Corps officer in the fictitious film playing Smedley Butler, basically, to say no to martial law and warn the president. And so that's basically what Mr. Douglas does. And so we're going to go ahead and go to those clips, but I just want to illustrate to you that they just had Dr. Strangelove the year before in 63 exposing government launching a nuclear attack on itself, basically, as a pretext for martial law and global domination. And then another film comes out a year later where they talk about generals using COG or Plan R to take over the government. And so we're going to go ahead and go to that first clip of the Burt Lancaster, Kirk Douglas, Paramount Pictures, based on the 62 novel by Fletcher Cannell and Charles Bailey II, 7 Days in May. Here's that first clip.
Lyman lovers!
So there's protesters in America. People are angry. Americans are fighting progressives, but the right winger wants to come save everybody. Of course, now it's the left coming in to supplant free speech. So again, the globalists were coming in to take over America. They knew the military was upset, so they put movies out about right-wingers using a martial law system. Right-wing, left-wing means nothing, but now, in common terms, they're actually implementing all of this, but now the left, in their own labels, is using this system against us. They become what they warned about. Let's go ahead and go to this clip. of Gene Scott's speech excerpts where they basically, well, I mean, the clip speaks for itself. Here it is.
Perhaps patriotism is old-fashioned. Perhaps love of country is outdated. Perhaps even a minute degree of sentiment to one's motherland is to be considered passé. But God help us, and God help our country, if the cynics, the one-worlders, the intellectual dilettantes ever persuade us that these things have passed us by. Because, ladies and gentlemen, patriotism, loyalty, sentiment, they are the United States of America.
So there you go. That's General Scott. I'm not a teleprompter reader. I call it Gene Scott. Another General Scott's speech excerpts. He talks about the threat of one-worlders. He's going to bring in martial law to stop the communist one-worlders. But they're not communists for the little guy. They're the banksters. Let's go to this next clip. It's self-explanatory.
Mr. President, have you ever heard of a military unit known as Ecomcon?
What?
I'm sorry, Ecomcon.
This is Smedley Butler.
What does it mean?
The archetype warning them.
Abbreviations. It could stand for Emergency Communications Control. Have you ever authorized the formation of any type of secret unit, regardless of its name, that has something to do with the preserving the security of things like television, telephone, or radio?
No, I haven't.
Henderson said an odd thing to me, sir. Something that, well, I can't shake quite loose of. He said they were spending more time training for seizing than for preventing.
You're suggesting what?
I'm not sure, Mr. President. Just some possibilities, what we call capabilities in military intelligence. I'm suggesting, Mr. President, there's a military plot to take over the government. This may occur sometime this coming Sunday.
So you stand by the Constitution, Jakes.
Never thought of it just like that, Mr. President, but well, that's what we've got, and I guess it's worked pretty well so far. I sure don't want to be the one to say we ought to change it.
Neither do I. I remember what Harry Truman said one day, that inside this room, the buck stops.
So again, it's the evil anti-New World Order people that want to overthrow the government using the COG media takeover arm that they'd set up to a certain extent then, but wasn't in place till the 70s. And then now that they've got it, they're saying domestic terrorist, free speech is evil. But that's how they sell it. And again, it's the archetype of the Marine Corps officer saying no. S. Smedley Butler, two-time Congressional Medal of Honor winner, he was approached during the 30s to make America basically a fascist country and take over. The point is, this has already happened through Homeland Security and the staged terror attacks of 9/11. Now they're just mopping up all the free speech centers and shutting down the final levels of freedom. Okay, let's go ahead with the presidential advisor telling the president that, hey, you know, what's wrong with the military training for this stuff?
Forgive me, Mr. President, but it's flying troops to the big cities in an alert. That seems to be not only logical, but prudent. Obviously, if the Russians struck, we'd need disciplined troops in the metropolitan areas to keep order and prevent complete breakdown.
And at 2:20 tomorrow afternoon, somebody will have thrown a switch at Mount Thunder. General James Scott will be on all 3 television networks, explaining to the people of the United States why this particular crucifixion is an act of faith.
Mr. President, what are you waiting for? Fire Scott. Close down Mount Thunder. Declare a state of martial law.
Then where do I stand?
And that's another good point. When different groups try to take over, then the answer is martial law, which is the same thing. So there's a great danger in revolution, and that's the point that's made there. A very sophisticated film. You can rent it on Netflix or buy it at the movie store. The point is you should see 7 Days in May. Continuing here with the clips, we had clip number 5 and number 6 here. Yeah, this is General Scott asked the Marine Corps commander if he'll go along with this or if he stands for the Constitution. And when the Marine Corps commander says, I stand for the Constitution, he says, then you take a vacation. That's basically how the system finds good and evil people. If you're good and they have you answer a questionnaire, they say, oh, you're a good person now. We're going to put you in supply or Antarctica. But if you're a corrupt globalist, then they actually bring you in to run operations. Here's that clip.
This country's in trouble, Jiggs. Deep trouble. Now, there are two ways we can handle this. We can sit here on our duffs and ask for divine guidance. Or we can what, Jiggs? What would your advice be?
Well, sir, we're a nation of laws, of rules. We're military men, so we've taken an oath to uphold the Constitution.
The democratic way.
Yes, sir, the democratic way.
You're right, Jiggs. You're absolutely right. You know, Jiggs, you've been working too hard on this damned alert. You look tired. Why don't you take the rest of the week off?
Unbelievable. Let's continue here. This has always been a threat to our country, folks, and now we're up to the line here. It's really happening. It's not a movie. Here's another clip where the President of the United States confronts General Scott on establishing secret base without knowledge of the President, the budget office in Congress, Iran-Contra, all of that, the black sites, the torture sites around the world. And there's a succession of clips while they debate that. Here it is.
You have used, without my authority, substantial sums from the Joint Chiefs Contingency Fund to establish a base and to train a special unit of troops whose purpose and even whose existence was kept secret from me, from responsible officials of the Bureau of the Budget, and members of the Congress.
And the name of that unit?
You know the unit. Its designation is Ecomcon. You accuse me of having lost their faith, and deliberately and criminally shut my ears to the national voice.
I do.
Where the hell have you heard that voice, General? In dark alleys? In secret places in the dead of night? How did that voice seep into a locked room full of conspirators? That's not where you hear the voice of the people, General, not in this republic. You want to defend the United States of America, then defend it with the tools it supplies you with, its Constitution. You ask for a mandate, General, from a ballot box. You don't steal it after midnight.
And then there's a clip where a senator tries to get into the secret base and gets locked up and they get out. Here's a clip of that.
Right now, the government of the United States is sitting on top of the Washington Monument, right on the very point, tipping right and left and ready to fall off and break up on a pavement. There are just a handful of men who can prevent that. And you're one of them. I'm going to tell you the damnedest story you ever heard.
That's all for tonight, Sergeant. You're relieved. I'm taking the civilian in my custody.
I'm sorry, Colonel, but I have orders that the civilian is not to leave the base, sir.
Oh, that's all right, Sergeant. I'm countermanding those orders and escorting the civilian into town.
Well, sir, now, I don't know. Colonel Broderick said that
Throw those keys over here. Eject that cartridge belt and throw it down on the ground.
Do we have people today that blow the whistle on government corruption? Yeah, Pat Tillman did, and they killed him. Point is, we've got the same problems today, but people blew the whistle inside the ATF and the government shipping guns into Mexico to blame the Second Amendment. We'd be in a lot worse shape today if it wasn't for all those silent people that did their duty. I won't even call them heroes. This idea of doing the right thing, it's not heroic, okay? Doing the right thing is not heroic. It's self-preservation. It's common sense. It's the survival instinct. If you let somebody enslave a bunch of innocent people or kill a bunch of innocent people, then you would allow that to yourself. It's common sense. It's not wimpy to have empathy, to feel somebody's pain. It's normal. It's a human instinct. And it's because we've gotten accustomed to going along with other people's pain as long as it's not us. That's weakened us all. That's where you lose your humanity, your womanhood, your manhood. And I'm not giving mine up. My feelings are my strength, not a weakness like these psychopaths tell us. I want my feelings. I see things and know things they'll never know because I'm tied into the universe. I'm not here to stomp on a bunch of innocents. Let's go to this final clip here. This is the ending. We're going to go to this in a moment. This is the ending of the clip where the general's basically been confronted.
And then we'll see which one of us the United States will follow. This will be delivered at 9 o'clock tonight on all major networks. I'll be taping it in 1 hour.
This is strong stuff, General. Are you sure?
Thank you, General.
General, if he accuses us of sedition, whether he has the proof or not, this could be a pretty sticky business.
Jordan Lyman is finished.
The papers just handed me are the resignations of Generals Hardesty, Riley, and Diefenbach. The point of this treaty, and I've reiterated this on a number of occasions, is that in every true sense, we force ourselves gradually to step away from an offensive posture. We gradually move away from that that moment of madness.
Where to, sir?
By accident or design, someone would push that button and the...
Sir?
Take me home.
So basically, it all ends with he tries to launch martial law. His own generals say no. The president confronts him. He backs off. The president goes public. But what do you do when the president's been bought off by the same interest? You know, this is a movie about the military saying no to the globalist takeover. They were worried about that then. That can be turned around today. Will our military follow the globalist takeover of the Bill of Rights and Constitution? Now, in closing, before we go to this important Don Corzine interview that I think you'll enjoy, a little comic relief here, we have something serious. You know, I've done some breakdowns, and we have some video clips here of what LCRA here in Austin has bought and what other police boats in New York have bought. On average, they cost $50,000 to $100,000. That boat right there, which is a big, fancy hot rod, sucked off of taxpayers and countless tickets, costs $600,000 plus and hundreds of thousands a year to maintain. And so all the tough guys can ride around on it all day. Now they're going to have more of these police interceptor boats out harassing on the lake, fighting Al-Qaeda, who's led into our country. And so I just wanted to point out that they are bankrupting our nation with this, and it's going on everywhere in Homeland Security with your federal taxes. Did pay for this, and it's another boondoggle. Because I know boats, ladies and gentlemen, that's about a $100,000 boat, $600,000+. Here is Darren McBreen's report on that.
We're here for the unveiling of the new DPS patrol vessel. It's a 34-foot shallow water interceptor, and it's going to begin patrolling the Rio Grande River and international lakes in 2012.
My name is Steve McCrum, the Director of Texas Department of Public Safety.
Can you describe what the boats are, how much they cost, who manufactured them?
Well, the cost is a little under $600,000 to fully equip with all the law enforcement gear, the tactical equipment, as well as the optics on it and the weaponry. It was manufactured in Florida. These are the type of not unlike what you'd see in tactical situations that the military would employ, and this is the first of 6 that we're acquiring. We are getting 5 additional. In fact, today marks the first day of standing up a maritime tactical unit within the Texas Department of Public Safety, and there will be, as I said, 5 additional ones. There'll be 6, and they'll be patrolling instead of the highways, they'll be patrolling the riverways. I expect that by summer we'll have them all up and running. They're all being built right now. There's two additional ones underway, and so we'll keep rolling them out as we get them and get the troops trained in tactical operations and also riverine operations. We used grant funds, discretionary grant funds that we had, and for Homeland Security, and we also used general revenue. The legislature, in fact, were directed that we use through a rider that we use some of those funds specifically for this purpose. After they had an opportunity to view some of our tactical operations on the border and some of our vulnerabilities and gaps. There are different grant programs, and there's a variety of them that can be used, and there are limitations in grant guidance, but this is clearly the way we purchase this will fall within the grant guidance. And how we use it, again, it's there to address the full spectrum of threats, whatever they are.
Is there no end? 6 boats at $600,000 apiece, and that's a $100,000 boat. So they can harass you when you're on the lake. I mean, I won't even go on the lakes. You get harassed so much. I live in a country run by crooks where I'm treated like a criminal. And this guy means, everything. Oh, some will be at the border fighting drug shipments. Buddy, have you not read the news? The government ships in almost all the drugs. You guys are there just there to bust anybody that doesn't get the authorization. 8 federal agencies, state agencies involved in all of it. And I drove to work this morning and saw 5 state police cars giving people tickets for driving 5 miles over the speed limit while they let illegal aliens and everything else go. I mean, and let Corazon rip everybody off. It is truly unbelievable. And I, for one, have had enough of it. No, when we